What's up, y'all? Welcome to another successful Sundays. I'm, of course, am your host, Coach AJ, Dope Black Coach, the dopest life coach out there, and welcome, welcome, welcome. I also want to say Happy Easter for those of you who do celebrate it. My family and I got together yesterday and just kind of chilled out. It was a really good afternoon and being with family. But before we get into the topic of today, which we're going to be talking about the power of saying no and how we can use that to propel us and for our success. And I'm going to actually go through different aspects of your life of where no has probably been something that's been hard for you to use. But before we even get started, we're going to just kind of clear the air, clear the energy. We're going to take a couple of deep breaths in through our nose, out through our mouth. And that's just going to kind of set us up for the week ahead. So we're going to start by taking a deep breath in through our nose and we're going to sigh it out through our mouth. All right. In through your nose, sigh it out through your mouth. All right. In through your nose. Sigh it out through your mouth. One more time. In through your nose. Sigh it out through your mouth. Yeah, it's a good way to clear the energy and just any tension you've been having, any bad vibes you've been having, clearing that up and just getting started with the good week that we have ahead. Um, so before we go ahead and we get into it, I'm just gonna ask you a quick question. Have you ever had um an issue with saying no? Like how many of you struggled with saying no or felt uncomfortable about hearing the word no? I'll give you a little bit of a personal story on the matter. There was a moment where I had to say no to someone, and I realized that it being difficult to say no, specifically when it came towards like my business, was rooted in people pleasing. And sometimes we really want to say no, but we say yes because we are afraid of a person's reaction. We don't want to deal with the conflict. So it's more easier, quote unquote, to say yes. We really want to say no. But in all actuality, we're actually saying yes to them, but we're saying no to ourselves, right? And I remember there was a time where I recently had to say no and or receiving no and how it kind of changed my path and how I thought. Now, if you've been with me for a minute, like I mentioned the story about a particular person that has far more money than I have at the moment, and they wanted to appear on my podcast and work with me. And I said, sure. So I laid out a couple of guidelines and stipulations with that to for it to be reciprocated and collab. They were against the entire thing. And I realized how it's shifted me into a completely different path since then. And maybe I just had to say no at that moment and not the values and there was no connection there. I could have said yes based upon the person's accolades and all these things, but something deep inside of me said, "No, it's going against of who I am," and I said no. And saying no I was actually super proud of myself for saying no because if had I said yes like I've done it in the past, I'll be saying no towards myself. So today we're going to be going into how the power of saying no is so powerful versus being so afraid of saying and receiving no, because saying no is also it's self-care in its own way. Again, so many of us say yes, but we're saying no to ourselves. And like mentioned in my story, it's redirection as well. Saying no and receiving no is not just like a dead stop sometimes. It's a way to redirect you in the path that you need to be. So many of us as entrepreneurs, we struggle with hearing and receiving no because we fear that we're missing out on opportunities. So we just accept whatever is given to us. People pleasing towards our clients and customers, like I said, the people please is a massive one. And you may have been taught that from childhood, to be honest, and it's just embedding in your business now. And you're feeling pressured to say yes when you really want to say no. But sometimes I want you to think of like what could cost you for not saying no, overcommitment, feeling overwhelmed, burnout, feel me? Um, your product or your brand, the message in itself is not really being displayed in the way you want it to be. Um, Also loss of opportunities to work with the folks that you really wanna work with, you know what I mean? So, I want you to kinda think of this, like, what's one thing you've said yes to that you realize wasn't the best choice or wasn't the best course of action? Because again, this is something where we have a tough time saying no because we're afraid of that reaction. But sometimes, like I said before, you could end up being overwhelmed, extending yourself too far, diluting your product, diluting your business, right? So, a few ways that we can learn to say no with confidence, because that's also what it's kind of rooted into. We feel like as if we say no, we're kind of shaking, we're like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you could simply say something like, "Oh, I appreciate your request, but right now, unfortunately, I don't think that your service is the right fit for my business." Um, you could say something like, "I'm focusing on other opportunities at the moment, and but I would like to revisit in the future." Because let's say, for example, you have a product or a service, and they're just not in the right part of their business or chapter in the business where they need your service. Now that you've spoken about it and they're aware and they have your contact information, they can now revisit it back. So this is why it's also a redirection as well, right? It's not just a no, a dead stop. But we're gonna get more into that as well. And another no is it's rooted in boundaries. So, for example, at a certain hour, for me being an entrepreneur, I don't answer emails and I don't answer phone calls unless it's an emergency. And that's just a boundary I've set with myself. Working in the corporate days, I was still replying to emails. I was still, answering those phone calls past the time where I really didn't want to do it. So when I started my business, I reflected back to what are the things that I straight up did not like when I was working corporate, and how can we embed it so I can honor myself and create my own boundaries. So one way that you can do it, if you ever find it's tough for you to say no, and I know this is gonna feel kinda odd doing it, is practicing on your mirror in your bedroom or any safe space, your bathroom, of you saying no. You know what I mean? Like, unfortunately, I don't answer phone calls after 7 p.m., but I will reach back to you in the morning around 8 a.m. if that works for you. Like, just practicing it to the point where you actually have to be faced with those interactions, it doesn't feel as such restraint. It kind of flows out. Now, here's one of the things I kinda talked about before is about receiving no and thinking like it's not just a dead end, right? We tie like no's are not personals because we tie it into thinking that they don't like us personally, and that's not the case, especially when it comes to your business or even your career in general. We tie it into like our own identity. And it also doesn't mean that it's failure. Them saying no never means that you're failing the situation. That's not the case. Sometimes, again, going back, people may not need your service at the moment, but they may need it later on. So the good thing is, if you've left a lasting impression, a positive lasting impression, and they know that your product is going to provide them with this and fix this problem, or your service is going to fix this problem, because at the end of the day, people are buying your product or service to fix the problem that they have. So if you are leaving it on a good stamp and not thinking, man, they didn't want it. More like, okay, great. I'll revisit back maybe in 6 months. How does that sound? That opens up more for conversation and opportunity for you to receive the no, but also feel redirected. And maybe in between the 6 months, there's a yes that's been lined up for you that you had to receive this no, because man, if you had both of those yeses, it may be too much and you may be overextending and you may be overwhelmed, right? Another thing is just it's just the timing and which I kind of talked about, but also like giving yourself the space for an even better yes. Like, I love receiving no's because maybe it's not no right now, but maybe it's no just because we don't have the money, maybe we don't have the funding, maybe it's just not at the moment. So never think a no is just the end of the world in your life. It's not, right? Now, I want to make something very, very clear. If you're pursuing someone and they say no, yo, that's a straight up no. You feel me? That's a straight up no. I'm talking about more of you achieving your goals in your life and more you trying to go after your own self improvement and your personal development journey. That's primarily, or your business, right? Or even your career. That's what I mean, right? If someone says no, that's a straight up no. But if you're thinking in a business aspect or you're thinking in a self-improvement aspect, if you're going after something and it's just not lining up at the moment, just understand that maybe it's just not lining up at the moment just because it's not meant for you right now. No doesn't mean end of the line all the time when it comes towards your personal development and self-improvement journey. At times, it just means no at the moment because maybe you're just not in the season to receive it. Maybe you're not the person to receive it just yet. I kind of talked about this before. There's a particular affirmation that I live by, and it's actually I have it on a post-it note in my car, and it's in order to receive, I must become, which is flat out. In order for me to receive all the things that I want, all the abundance, all the blessings, all the alignment that I would like to require and that's in my path, I have to become the person in order to receive it. So sometimes receiving a no is just part of that path. Sometimes receiving or even giving a no is just part of it. Maybe you have someone that wants your product right now and you have to say no, or maybe you have someone right now that wants to offer you a job or something, or something that could better your life and maybe you just know, "You know what? I can't take that on right now. Can we revisit it in the next 3 months?" And if they're willing and ready to wait, boom, you good. You Gucci. So don't ever think that no is just like the end of the line. And I also want you to think of areas in your own life where you need to start saying no. Whether it's your personal life, there's aspects of where you're overextending yourself and you're finding that you're far too exhausted by saying yes to everybody else and not saying yes to yourself. It's okay to say no. I can't help you this weekend, but I could probably help you next. You know what I'm saying? It's okay to say no. I'm not available to hear you for you to rant to me at the moment because I got my cup is full or I'm on bare bones. I don't have the energy right now. But you know what? Give me like an hour, let me just shower and get my stuff together, and I'll be your listening ear. I'll be your listening ear. And those that are around you that will respect your no will be like, "I bet." And if you have those that are just like, "Well, that's inconvenience to them, who cares, bro? Take care of yourself, okay? Sis, bro, take care of yourself." At the end of the day, when you're saying yes to them, when you really wanna say no, you're saying no to yourself and your feelings and your boundaries and your self-respect and your self-worth and your self-love, right? You need to start using the word no and not in a sense of disrespect, but in more of protection and self-care. Again, protection, self-care, okay? So I want you to think about and identify areas, just one area in your life where you know that you need to start saying no to people. And honestly, who cares about how they may be feeling or how they may react to it? Honestly, who gives a rat's ass? Because at the end of the day, you got to focus on yourself in those matters. And even if you ever want to like practice again, you could practice in the mirror, in your car, bedroom, bathroom, but you also can just write it out. How would you say it? How would you like to repeat it to someone? And then you just keep practicing that. All right. So I want you to think about also, and I want to leave you with a couple of things. Like, think of your life as as such a massive plant, right? And every time that you say yes when you really want to say no, a leaf falls off because you're just not protecting the plant. The roots start to dry up. You're not watering it. And in order for you to grow, sometimes you got to say no. And I know that stings to hear, but like in order for you to really honestly grow, you have to learn and embrace the word no. And I also, before I forget, sometimes you got to say no to yourself. All right. Sometimes you gotta really say no to you. And what I mean by that is also the boundary aspect of what I mentioned before of you saying it like I said, "No, I'm not gonna answer phone calls past 7 PM because that's my time," or, "I'm not gonna reply to emails. I'm just gonna focus on me in those moments because I need that time." Saying no to yourself, "You know what? I'm not gonna have, another hour of scrolling," or something like that. I don't know, but just areas of your life, start looking at where you need to start saying no to you as well. Because remember, no, saying no isn't rejection. It's also a strategy of how you want to live your life. Okay. Like it's you creating a strategic plan of you honoring and protecting yourself. And also when you receive a no, trust that you're guiding yourself to receive and align towards something even better. So a no, receiving a no is not the end of the world. It's just part of the path. Okay. So every time that you say yes to something, you are unaligning yourself. Uh, sorry, every time you say yes to something, you are unaligned yourself saying no to something that could be change your life. Like I want you to think about a moment where you really wanted to say no and you said yes. An opportunity came up. You're like, damn. Because sometimes, honestly, what do you think? There's moments probably right now when you said yes to something else and that greater that you were supposed to say like you were supposed to say no to them so the greater could come in, that could have altered and changed your entire perspective of your life. So sometimes, yes, if you feel inside like, "Man, I really don't wanna do this," that is, like, restriction you're feeling like, "Bro, this is not for me. This is not for me, and maybe I just need to really say no." So start taking power of the word no. Don't think that it's just this horrible bad word. It's protection in its own way, and it's redirection as well. That's all I got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed today's successful Sunday. Um we are like halfway through the month of April, which is quite odd to be honest. And it's just weird to even say that we're halfway through because that means it's May coming up. And next month will mark 5 years of the Dope Life podcast. I'm trying to wrap my brain around that, but yeah, it's been 5 years of the Dope Life podcast, and it launched, which is crazy to even think. So, but we have a great slate of episodes ready for you for the month of May. Again, that's all I got for you today, and I hope that you take back the power of saying no for yourself and see it as redirection and self-care always. All right? My name is Coach AJ again, Dope Life Coach and Dope Life Coach out there. Be sure to check the new episode this Tuesday. It drops. And as always, y'all, you know what to do. You need to walk with peace and you need to walk with love.